Okay.
Okay.
We are at 4:40.
Okay, welcome to the regular meeting of council electronically via Zoom, June the 1st, 2021 at 4:40 p.m. Meeting called to order, and we'll have a moment of silence. When we take this moment of silence, please remember the 215 Indigenous children that disappeared over many years in Kamloops, BC. Very tragic. Our heart goes out to the Indigenous communities around the whole of Canada. Okay, we have a motion for approval of the agenda.
Moved by Stacey White, seconded by Eugene Ivanoff. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held June 1st, 2021, beginning at 4:40 p.m. be approved as circulated to all members of council.
All in favor? Motion carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? None noted. Petitions and delegations. Laurentian University. And welcome, Ellen Dufault. Go ahead, Ellen. Ellen. Here he is.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about an issue that I believe should concern all of you and every Northern Ontarian. In fact, it should concern anybody in Canada who cares about or depends on quality public services. On February the 1st of this year, Laurentian University in Sudbury announced that it was seeking protection from their creditors under the Companies Creditors Agreement Act, or the CCAA. To call this announcement unprecedented is no exaggeration. Since 1933, when it was passed into law by the House of Commons, the CCAA has never been used by a publicly supported and funded organization delivering a public service, and with good reason. The CCAA was written specifically to govern the process for dealing with insolvent, private, for-profit companies. It was never envisioned as a means for dealing with publicly supported, not-for-profit organizations and entities facing insolvency. For this reason, a number of organizations objected in court to Laurentian seeking CCAA protection, but a judge overruled these objections, deciding that Laurentian could move forward in this way, as could any incorporated entity carrying a debt of $5 million or more. This sets a very disturbing precedent that could cause deep and irreversible harm to any community in Canada. Before I talk about the potential harm this precedent could cause, I'd like to share with you some facts about the events set in motion by Laurentian last winter and the effects they have taken, the toll they've had on the community of Sudbury. Once Laurentian was permitted to invoke the CCAA, events moved very quickly. The court appointed a third-party monitor to oversee Laurentian's restructuring. That plan had to be brought forward to the courts no later than April 30th. The cuts that have since been approved have been devastating. More than 110 full-time faculty saw their employment terminated. More than 60 undergraduate and graduate programs were either eliminated outright or faced harsh cuts. Economists have forecast that on these cuts alone, which amount to approximately $100 million, the city of Sudbury will see its gross domestic product shrink by 2%. This is, first of all, a conservative estimate, which does not include economic spin-offs, which are generated by wage earners spending their money in the community, creating additional jobs and wealth. Second, the cuts are far from over. As part of its restructuring, Laurentian has unilaterally terminated its federated agreement with a number of institutions and organizations which had entered into the agreement to deliver courses and degrees. Even more tragic is how the decline of one of the most prominent post-secondary education institutions in Northern Ontario will reshape Sudbury and Northern Ontario as a whole. With its graduate and undergraduate programming now in tatters, Laurentian will seek to be a post-secondary institution of choice for thousands of young people across Canada and beyond. Through various agreements, including the recently terminated Federated Agreement, students across the North were able to remain in their home communities while pursuing their educational goals. The incentive to remain at home in the North to pursue studies no longer exists. It is hardly an exaggeration to say that the damage caused by Laurentian seeking bankruptcy protection under the CCAA has to date been and will continue to be catastrophic. No community should have such a thing happen, which brings me back to the precedent set last February. If any publicly supported organization in Canada with debts of $5 million or more falls under the CCAA's umbrella, then no community is safe. Public institutions are not places that should be handed over to unaccountable third parties, forced into harsh cutbacks in staff and services, shredding freely negotiated contracts while depriving the public of the vital public services they expect and need, all while denying them any meaningful input in the restructuring plan. Simply put, the CCAA is a tool that was never designed to be used on or by publicly supported not-for-profit entities. Rather, it was passed in 1933, while Canada remained in the grip of the Great Depression, to deal with insolvent private for-profit corporations. The very first word in the name of the act is companies. To use the CCAA in a manner it wasn't intended for carries with it a wide range of consequences that are far too dangerous for every community in Canada. It wrongly blurs the line between private, profit-seeking businesses and public goals, supported by public funds to achieve a public good. My last comment on this is as follows. Not only is the CCAA the wrong tool to deal with publicly funded, not-for-profit entities, doing so prevents the public from holding governments accountable for the decisions they make, which play a major role in the overall well-being of public services that Canadians have decided are priorities that are best not left for the marketplace. Governments can now shirk their responsibilities and claim that since the matter is before the courts, there is nothing they can do, which is precisely what has happened in this case. While the damage being done in Sudbury will probably be hard, if not impossible, to repair, it is up to every Canadian who supports our public services to make their voices heard. The simplest and most effective solution to prevent another Laurentian from happening is for the federal government to amend the CCAA so that no publicly supported not-for-profit entity can ask for or be forced into creditor protection under the CCAA. Governments will take action on an issue when they hear the same thing from many of their constituents and other stakeholders. That is why I'm asking you to act in the interests of your constituents and in the long-term interests of Northern Ontario, to urge the federal government to amend its legislation on the CCAA so that what happened to Laurentian and Sudbury can never happen again in any community. Councils across the North are making their voices heard. In the municipalities of East Ferris and French River, resolutions calling for the provincial and federal governments to take action to support Laurentian will soon go before their respective councils. I urge this council to consider to take similar action. I further encourage you, Mayor and councillors, to speak to your Member of Parliament and express strongly to them the importance of amending the CCAA to prevent its further misuse, causing damage to the fabric of communities across Canada. I also encourage you to express your deep concern to our MPP about the deep and lasting damage caused by their decision to not offer any sort of meaningful support to Laurentian. Once again, I thank you for taking the time to hear out my concerns and all the best.
Comments and questions from councillors?
Yeah, I have one.
Councillor Shabbat?
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, I didn't get your name, the presenter, but thank you very much. Everything I'm very impressed with your presentation. Just to let you know, I went to Lawrence University for my undergraduate degree, and I really enjoy the university. And I've been part of the sending money to them once in a while, whenever I can, whenever I do have loose change. But my question to you, by the way, it's really sad the way those faculty members were laid off, because I understand that they just call a Zoom meeting and then it's like, you're gone, you're gone. That's totally very inhumane. But my question is, out of all this thing, some of the management and the board of directors, what accountability do they have? I mean, who's holding them accountable? Because they're the one that run this ship onto the ground. I mean, who are they? Who's holding them? Who's holding them to be accountable to this mess that Lawrence University found itself into, and especially the former president, I think is Dominic Giroux, that left to the Sudbury Hospital. He was part of that problem big time too. So, I mean, do you know what happens to, I mean, they laid off a lot of full-time faculty members. What about the management people and then the board of directors too, that looked the other way when some of these things were happening?
Well, I'm one of the faculty members that was terminated, I guess, by proxy when the federated agreement with Thornlow was terminated. To the best of my knowledge, the board of directors and the president, one of the criteria in their receiving emergency funding or the emergency loan was that the current board essentially remains intact and the current president remains in place to govern the process. So effectively, they're benefiting from this entire process. There is no, none that I've seen, at least down the line. There seems to be no repercussions. I know that France Jelena for the NDP has begun an inquiry, an audit of value for money at Laurentian, which will hopefully lead to some repercussions down the line. But yeah, unfortunately, the upper administration that has overseen the entire process thus far, at least, seems to be entirely immune from any of the repercussions or fallouts. And as far as I know, a large percentage of them aren't really permanent residents in the community as well, so they don't seem to have that familial connection to the north or to Sudbury at large. So yeah, it's very, very worrying, the entire process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oh, I just got your name on my agenda.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm Alan Doe. I'm a member of CUPE and one of the faculty at Thornlow that was terminated.
Thank you very much. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Ellen, Mayor Kiley here. Just a couple of questions. Who petitioned them into bankruptcy, Laurentian? Was it the creditors or was it the province?
The entire thing is incredibly murky. I've been essentially following it through the news. There hasn't been a lot of direct information. They've been very cagey about a lot. It's my understanding it was initiated by Laurentian itself on the advice of one of the groups of lawyers that they were working with. The only takeaway I've gotten is that the lawyers have certainly profited quite a bit from this entire process.
Good. I guess the other point is it's amazing the amount of debt that the banks extended in credit to the university without red flags going up. And I don't think they ever thought something like this was going to happen where they'd be put into bankruptcy.
It came as a complete shock, especially because they'd been showing balanced or roughly balanced books for years. So there certainly are some questions, regarding financial management that I think a lot of the faculty were caught completely off guard with how bad things were and how quickly, apparently, the entire ship sank.
Creative accounting. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, I consider Laurentian a small university. I'm a graduate of Trent, which was much smaller when I went there than it is today. And for a certain type of student, a small university is a very comfortable place to learn. And Thornlow, of course, is a subsection sort of thing.
Yes.
And that's not easy to fund or keep going. I appreciate that. I'm most disturbed by the fact that the board of directors and the upper management were allowed to stay in place. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense because they were the ones that made the decisions that put the university in the place that it is now. So I have a couple of questions. This seemed to happen all of a sudden. Like I had never heard on the news, and I'm a former journalist. I never saw anything that suggested Laurentian was in financial trouble. Were there any red flags that came up before this? And my second question, is anybody going to do a forensic audit going back, I would say 10 years, because the university did not run up that debt, I'm sure, in 1 year. Somebody's got to answer for this, and it shouldn't be the students or the professors.
So, yeah, to your first question, there sort of were. Being at Thornlow a year and a half ago, Laurentian had arbitrarily and unilaterally amended our federation agreement, changing the funding model, essentially charging us or charging Thornlow more for service fees and changing how they the financial transfers and that, which was certainly a red flag that Laurentian was experiencing some financial hardships, but not to the degree that ultimately has been revealed. To your second question, I know that France Jelena and the NDP have begun a process of initiating a value for money audit on Laurentian, which I believe the intention is to go back as far as is possible. I'm not certain the full parameters. I haven't been privy to that information, but it seems like it's the type of thing that's going to lead into a public inquiry type scenario, which hopefully will get to the bottom of where this crisis ultimately came from, because it is the amount that they were in debt when the CCAA kicked off was astonishing at how severe it was, and then how quickly it reared its head. Just all of a sudden, Laurentian was completely insolvent and bankrupt. And I had been working there for 10 years, and it caught me off guard completely. So,
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. We appreciate you bringing us up to date on the circumstances leading up to Laurentian bankruptcy, and we will take it under review. So thank you for your presentation. We have another presentation coming up, so we have to move along.
thank you for your time.
Very informative. Thank you. We have a motion to receive the report from Alan.
It's D-A, no, it's D-A-O-U-S-T, Daoust.
Yes.
It's spelled wrong there.
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry.
Alan, if you're still on the line, would your name on Zoom be the proper spelling?
Yes.
Perfect. I had it like this from the email, so. So moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the delegation from Alan Daou be received.
All in favor?
Yep.
Motion carried. Item 4.2, delegation from Nettie Lake, Catherine Whalen, and Brian Culvert.
If they haven't paid us.
Do you want to ask them?
Can you turn on your video, Catherine and Brian?
Are you there, Brian? Brian was going to start.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Can you see me?
Yep.
I can see you. Okay. Well, here we are again, regards to Nettie Lake. I and a bunch of other people thought that this issue for land development had been resolved last year. To recap, I had gained status at the Lpat case number PL 200066 to speak against the rezoning of the lands that have just been allowed to develop with the most recent passing of the bylaw. To recap the Lpat case, we got status based on the fact that there was a petition of 31 people that were against any development of any sort on Nettie Lake and still are. That hasn't changed. The Lpat people had indicated after Ray Kenny and my hydrogeologist Ali Rasool had reviewed the Blue Heron report on the Lake Needs study that it was invalid because of dated information. And it is still invalid because it has never been brought up to date by the Lang Deloy family. Okay, so nothing has changed with respect to that Lake Needs study. It's still not worth the paper it's printed on. And one of the key areas that was addressed by Ray Kenny that was really overlooked in that study were the dissolved oxygen levels. And I'd just like to comment on that. And I'd also like to make mention that Councillor Shaba has some background in this, as he does have environmental education. Dissolved oxygen levels means the oxygen is getting depleted in the lake. And the reason for that is because of hydrocarbons, which are emitted from gas motors. And it's getting worse and has gotten progressively worse since 1978, when this memo from the Ministry of Natural Resources to the Ministry of Housing stated that at that time, Nettie Lake is 126 acres in approximate area and is a cold water fishery. They go on to talk about stocking. But the point being is that a spring-fed lake is very sensitive to gas and gas motors because it has a very low turnover. It's not like a system lake. It's a spring-fed lake that does not have large amounts of water flowing through it. So it's more susceptible to pollution. And how that all relates to hydrocarbons, very simply, is the hydrocarbons from the gas goes down to the bottom of the lake and eats up the oxygen and starts depriving the lake of oxygen and thus starts killing the fish. And then that leads to green-blue algae blooms, okay? And that's critical to what's going on out here at Nettie Lake, because the memo goes on to say that in determining the capacity of Nettie Lake Aggregate Water Quality Index was the lowest capacity at 630 user days. The present use of Netty Lake is equivalent to 12,400 user days, thus exceeding water quality capacity by 11,770 user days. Using boat limit capacity, according to the MNR, the user day capacity is 3,750 and is still exceeded with present use by 8,650 user days. And the calculations were attached in this study. This is 1978. Okay? Just think about what's going on out there right now. And the lake is taking a beating. And it can't go on. Now, over the years, there has been a lot of emails, correspondence, and what have you sent to the planning department. And we basically have gotten nothing from them. No enforcement, very little cooperation. To this day, we consider the illegal trailer park that's going on over there at the Knights of Columbus has never had a site plan agreement. That was promised to us by Ashley Bilodeau. That never happened. And to this day, we still do not see any site plan agreements for any land development out here. This memo also goes on to say, in view of what we must consider gross overdevelopment and recognizing that the existing cottages were erected in good faith over a period of time, they would agree to endorse a subdivision on many conditions, one of which being that existing cottages be used for seasonal or recreational use only. Well, we've blown the doors off of that, okay? There's nothing but larger scale development going on at Netty Lake. The other thing I'd like to point out to you, and you people have this information, the planning department has everything that I am telling you. It was given to them for the Lpat hearing. You have it, and if you haven't read it, you should be reading it because it's going to help you make more informed decisions. Now, it was our understanding that the blocks of land in question, and they're not lots, they're blocks, were designated as parklands and open space. And it is our understanding that they still are restricted and registered on title. What also is registered on title is this subdivision agreement that the planning department has. There is all kinds of breaches in here. Everywhere from lot grading, it states many points here, then you're going to get a copy of this because I want to make sure all councillors and the mayor has this, that all of these properties should have site plan agreements, and that if there is any work done on shoreline, anywhere close to the water, that the MNR should be consulted on this. No fill should be placed or removed on any existing vegetation, should be altered within the setback areas from Netty Lake with each lot without consultation with the Ministry of Natural Resources. So there's a whole section here on a registered plan of subdivision on title that the town continues to breach, that the planning department is not paying attention to, and still are not, and haven't over all of these larger homes that are going up, which are supposed to be seasonal. It's not happening. There's no enforcement. There's no regulation at the Knights of Columbus. Every single piece of electrical and plumbing has been bootlegged over there. There has been no building permits. Nothing. Now we get to this situation with these blocks of land. And to my knowledge, there's no site plan agreements on them. Again, was our understanding that these blocks of lands were not to be developed, And there's a reason for that. Your own consultants told you, especially this lot that's beside the firemen's, that is considered to be wetlands where herons and loons are nesting, in their study that it wasn't to be developed. That has been totally ignored. You know, we'd like to know why. There are people on council that think that this isn't really development. Well, it is. And anytime you're in a situation where you have to go in and put a holding tank in, which is what's being proposed here, you got to bring in the backhoe, you got to dig a hole. When you start digging over there, you're going to be below the lake level. Okay, there's going to be sediments washing into that bay because you're going to have to grade it and landscape it and everything else. These blocks of land, when the subdivision was originally approved, were never, ever supposed to be developed. And now they are. And we're scratching our heads and wondering, you know, how the hell did that happen? Nobody out here realized that this was going down until it started to happen. When people out here got notified of the development of these proposed lots, you had a bunch of people in the council chambers because they were properly notified. There was very little notification on the development of these properties. Hardly any that I'm aware of. So right now what you got is a situation out here that's basically the Wild West. And if you don't believe me, come out and get in a canoe and kayak on a warm weekend and take a little paddle around the lake and watch you don't get run over by the Sea-Doos. Because there's kids swimming out here. There's all kinds of dangers. And the more that this planning department and council's approval allows development, the more you expose yourself to liability. Okay? And my advice to you, I would strongly suggest that you start checking it out. Because what you might find is that you may be exposed to more liability than you think, and it's not a good situation because each and every one of you could well be liable. And I say that out of respectfully, not as a threat. It's worthwhile looking into. All right? So my closing comments are this. Our concern is what is going to happen in the future because we feel there's been a precedent set here. You know, are we in a situation where these blocks of lands could potentially host a trailer park development? We think that's a possibility. We are just saying that the development has to stop. People do not want any more of it. The worst part about this whole situation, and I understand better than a lot of people what it's like when the squeeze is on for money, because that's where you guys are. You're not going to get any tax revenues from trailers. All you're doing is exposing yourself to liability and future enforcement costs. There is absolutely no gain to this whatsoever. Those are my comments. If you have any questions of me, here I am.
We've used up a lot of the allotted time, Brian. If Catherine would like to say a few, make some comments.
Okay, thank you, Council. My name's Kathy Whalen. My family's had a cottage out at Nitty for over 60 years. We've had a family cottage.
Sorry to interrupt. We can't see you on your screen. It's just a red dot.
Sorry, I can't do anything about that. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep, I hear you.
Less than 2 years ago, Robert and Beverly Lang presented to council asking for the rezoning of parks and open space land that they owned at Nitty Lake. All residents of Nitty Lake were notified by mail of this request, and many showed up to oppose this change to the many blocks of land zoned as park and open space at Nitty. All current councillors, with the exception of Lad Shaba, were present at this meeting, and all heard the opposition to this change of the use of the land. Council denied the request of the rezoning of this land. Robert and Beverly Lang appealed this decision to Lpat and then withdrew their claim on November 10th, 2020, and sold blocks of this land that remained zoned parks and open space. J.L. Richards Engineers, Architects, and Planners were hired by the town of Kirkland Lake to update the town's zoning bylaws. In their report, they recommended no new development or additions to existing development or redevelopment that requires septic approval be permitted for lots zoned RR01 and a lot zoned RS01. This recommendation was adopted in the new zoning bylaws. At a public meeting held November 9th, 2020, J.L. Richards heard comments from the public, and their report of April 16th, 2021 addressed many zoning questions from Robert and Beverly Lang from November 1st, 2020, and addressed a November 12th request made by Michelle Gertay to place an RV mobile on wheels, which is something not permitted for land zoned parks and open space. The recommendation from J.L. Richards was, and for the sake of time, I'll just say that they elaborated, do you have that report, that it not be permitted. At a public meeting on April 20th to allow all members of the public for all areas of Kirkland Lake on bylaws, the only members that showed up were owners of parks and open space at Nettie Lake. The town has stated there was adequate notice of this April 20th public meeting, yet posts on both Facebook and Twitter on April 16th only stated the agenda for the regular meeting of council had been posted with no mention of a public meeting. The calendar on the Town of Kirkland Lake website also only lists a regular meeting on April 20th. Had the residents of Nettie Lake been made aware by letter that requests would be made at this meeting to change permitted uses to parks and open space, many that had attended the meeting in September of 2019 to oppose changes to that land would have been present. During this meeting, Michelle Gertay made the same request for placing an RV as she did in November, and J.L. Richards stated the recommendation that this should not occur. With very little discussion as to the impact this would have on the lake, council approved this request. Then Robert Lang asked if he could have an RV on land he has. Then Michelle Gertay asked for another RV on another block of land that she has, and council agreed to those requests as well. It is of note that in the updated bylaws, the exceptions are only for 2 blocks of land, not the 3 requested. There was no discussion at the meeting as to if any of these blocks of lands contain wetlands that are protected or how wildlife may be impacted. There was no discussion at the meeting as to the type or size of RVs that could be placed on these blocks of land, yet some RVs could be bigger than some cottages. There was no discussion at the meeting as to the grading or clearing of blocks of land. A statement in this meeting made by Councillor Rick Owen about fairness and one of the owners paying taxes on this property failed to note that taxes on parks and open space blocks is minimal at Nettie Lake, and that unlike cottages, RVs are not taxed. So allowing RVs on these blocks of land brings in no additional revenue to the town. Councillor Owen also argued in the meeting that Micheline Gertay should not have to do a lake capacity study, as someone else building a home on one of these other zones on the lake did not have to, so this would level the playing field. I do not understand how the past lack of enforcement by the town of Kirkland Lake is equated with fairness by continuing not to request a new lake capacity study, as has been recommended by both Lpat and J.L. Richards. There was no discussion in the meeting as to the restrictions in the original subdivision agreement or any legal restrictions that could be in the titles of those blocks of land. Acting Mayor Wright noted in the meeting that people that purchased the land knew the land was zoned parks and open space, yet little discussion followed this. I requested a copy of the original subdivision agreement from the town clerk, who provided me with it, missing 2 of the 3 schedules that form part of the agreement. When I requested the missing schedules, I was provided with a document that the town clerk stated would constitute Schedule A. Schedule B, that is described in the subdivision agreement as the legal description of affected, could not be reviewed as the town has not been able to find it in their records. When the clearing of land was noted on the parks and open space beside my family's cottage at Nettie Lake, I made a call to the town and spoke to Jenna McNaughton in the planning department, who stated it was private property and owners of private property could clear land. She amended that unless there was a title restriction on the land for clearing, and added that the town did not search titles. I, as well as another family member, made a request for service to bylaw enforcement related to the clearing of Block 23 at Nettie Lake and did not hear anything back about this till 2 weeks later when I followed up with the town clerk to ask about this. Make clear that in the subdivision agreement for Nettie Lake on page 4, item 3, that the owner of a lot shall, before commencing any grading or construction on a lot, prepare a detailed report, drawings and site plan acceptable to the municipality, which shall show first floor elevation, finished grade, lot grades, and direction of surface drainage, the location of all buildings and structures to be erected on the site, and all the final grades, the means whereby storm drainage will be accommodated, and the means whereby erosion and silting will be contained and minimized both during and after the construction period. I received the following email from the town clerk, May 18th, in an email. Staff have been in contact with the noted property owner as well as a completed site visit today. It appears that no grading is currently taking place. The property owner has been utilizing heavy equipment for removing some trees and cleaning up fallen dead trees. The property owner is permitted to do this work, and in doing so, in preparation for the placement of a recreational vehicle as approved by council. Staff has noted that at this time, there is no activity of concern or bylaw infractions for the bylaw officer to enforce. I was very surprised at this response as I, as well as others, have seen what has been done to this property and believes that it fits the definition of grading. It is unclear to me why council granted the exceptions to the use of parks and open space at Nettie Lake when the town consulted and paid experts in the excess of $20,000 for their expert opinion that this should not occur. Even obtaining a minor variance would include applying for one, and a committee of adjustment would have to decide on the application. Little information was provided on one of the blocks of land and none on the other two, yet council just approved the use of this land that is a much bigger change than any would be considered a minor variance without direct notification of any of the residents of Nettie Lake, including adjacent property owners. What is the section of the Planning Act that describes proper notification of people in zoning matters? The overdevelopment of Nettie Lake has been a long-withstanding issue, which is something council was aware of and is evidenced by statements of the town dropping the ball in relation to allowing so much development on this lake that is grossly overdeveloped and has been since 1978. The impact on the lake of having an RV allowed on this land is very similar to allowing a cottage to be placed on this land and sets a bad precedent. The bylaw concerning parks and open space is for all of Kirkland Lake, and anyone reading them will see that exceptions have been made for RVs. Further requests based on this precedent could be made to place RVs on other parks and open space land, not just at Nettie Lake, but on other lakes and places in Kirkland Lake. There already exists a zone at Nettie Lake, RSO1, that permits RVs. Why did council grant an exception to parks and open space owners rather than tell the owners to apply for rezoning? The RSO1 zone in the current bylaw states that no person shall, and no owner or lessee of any trailer shall permit to be used any trailer for the living, sleeping, or eating accommodation of persons within the municipality of the town of Kirkland Lake, unless in a trailer camp, duly designated and approved for that purpose for more than 60 days in any period of 10 consecutive months. Why is this bylaw being ignored?
Kathy and Brian, can appreciate the comments that you made today, and the detailed notes that you put together are very concise. We're not going to be able to solve this today. I think the best we can do is to council to receive this report and ask staff to come back with a report to council, because there's a number of items here that just are not going to be fully understood until we get feedback from the staff as well. So I don't mean to cut you short, but we give you more than the allotted time that we normally do. We do take your comments seriously, both you and Brian. It's something that we have to look at, and there have been mistakes made in the past. We're not hiding or blaming anybody, but let's have staff to report back to council to see what we can do to try and resolve these issues along the way.
Okay,
What we would like to do is send you one line of communication with all of the questions that we would like answered and addressed by your planning department. Okay, that's all we ask.
That's fair.
and the other thing is that what we would like to see happen that council rescinds the exceptions in the new bylaw that allows RVs on that land, because we feel it's a huge mistake. Thank you.
It's not going to take place today, but we appreciate your input. Very detailed, I must say. Thank you. Councillor Casey Owens.
Okay, to the aspect of rescinding that motion, that's like, no, we're past the appeals period. From the emails, it's very clear that they don't qualify. It's done. Let's move on. Like, that aspect of the bylaw should not be revisited in any way, shape, or form. That was done, in my mind, the way it was explained to us back in May. That is done. That it does not revisit. As to having staff come back to us with these questions, I'm not necessarily in favor of that, because there's a lot of stuff going on both sides here at Nettie Lake. There's a lot of houses that are even trailers that are parked on private properties that should not necessarily be there. So people seem to be ignoring certain aspects of the bylaws when it's convenient for them. So I will not be supporting any motion of bringing staff or asking staff to bring back this any information.
Yeah, your worship, please. Lad Shaba, I have my hand up.
Councillor Owen had his hand up before you, and then.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, that was a zoning bylaw that was passed. And it was very well advertised. It was on our website, it was on the radio, it was in the paper.
Yeah.
There were 3 people from Nettie Lake that did show up. I don't know what else we could have done. We certainly went over and beyond our legal requirement to do that. As I want to make a clarification here. When the original proposal came forward, it was to put a septic tank in. And I said no, because of the environmental impact septic tanks have on the lake. Instead, I suggested, and it was accepted, that a holding tank be put in, because a holding tank does not discharge into the environment. It's pumped out and it's taken to an approved site and disposed of. As for the holding tank being below the water line, I know from experience, because I was involved with getting permitting to put a holding tank in Severn Township on a lakefront property. There are very specific rules that must be followed. And it's just like a septic system. It's the same inspector. And if he says no, it doesn't happen. From what I've seen the property, and where the holding tank goes is certainly not below the, I'm going to say water line, but that's not the word I'm looking for. Groundwater.
Water
It
table.
would be above that. It's on the other side of the old road. The old road would have had a bigger impact on the lake than the trailer. I did drive out, and I drove all around Nettie Lake. And quite frankly, I was quite shocked at the mansions out there. I mean, the cottages. Now, our previous town planner told us that even though that was in there, in the bylaw or zoning law, it could not be enforced. That the same thing had happened in Muskoka, and it had gone to court, and it was not enforceable. So
What's not enforceable?
that whole part of the zoning bylaw is not enforceable concerning whether it's a seasonal residence or permanent residence. That was the advice council was given from the previous planner we had. Now, in terms of our planning department, I don't want them slammed for what they did and didn't do. If somebody walks in there and says that they're going to build a cottage, that person that works for the town has to accept their word. There's no two ways about it. They're not there to challenge people. They're there to make sure that building permits are received, that there's a permit for the septic tank from the health unit. And I believe, but I could be wrong because I'm not in the process of building anywhere, I believe a site plan is also part of that process of building. So I just want to make it clear that a holding tank is much different than a septic tank. It does not emit into the environment. It's the least environmental intrusive way of dealing with gray water and brown water. And a trailer is not the building of a house. So a lot of what was read there that had to do with the building of a house does not apply to a trailer. As for things used to be this way, well, the cottage we had in Severn Township across the road from us was supposed to be green space too. And then we went up one year and there was a house built there. Things change. And that's just part of life. So I just wanted
Before, Councillor Owen, before we keep going, I noticed we don't have a clerk right now. Something's going on with the town hall feed. So before any other comments are made, I think this meeting should be probably put on hold until the clerk and the mayor come back in.
You go without a clerk. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See them trying to hook up now. Oh, there they are.
We are.
Okay, can you,
Okay, sorry, just give us 1 second here to make sure we've got everything going properly. I see people on, and then I just need to says I'm live on YouTube. Does anyone have that? It's still going?
It says recording live on YouTube.
Yeah,
Thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what, our internet just
okay,
left us.
go ahead, Councillor. Finish up then.
I'm done.
Okay.
I believe Lad was next.
okay. I think Councillor Owen did say a lot of the stuff that I wanted to point out. Actually, one of the things that you've questioned to you, Kathy and Brian Cogman, is that when this process of this bylaw, the whole thing zoning was unfolding, did you guys make any presentation during that time? And my question would be that this lake capacity study, was it something that was done recently, or because someone said it was done 1978, or did I get it wrong? So when was the last lake capacity study done? And
The lake capacity study, may I respond to that? Okay. The lake capacity study is something that Ashley Bilodeau directed the Lang family to do in the initial application to have the blocks of land in question rezoned. Okay? That study was analyzed by 2 water experts and was found to be flawed. and that is where the study ended. So it has never been completed. All right? The lake capacity study is something that, and Ashley Beldo can speak to this, I'm not a planner, but that is her initiation, and that is something that she had the Lang family do as part of their rezoning application, and it was never completed.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? If we have a motion to receive, and do we want to include requesting a staff report to council?
I have the mover as Casey Owen, seconded by Rick Owen.
No, take my name off that, please.
No, I'll keep my name on it, but I'm not including any, that's it. We received the report and leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll leave my name on if it says receive the report.
Okay, so we can pass that motion, and then if there is somebody that wants to put a further motion, you can choose to do that. So moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Rick Owen, be it resolved that the delegation from Kathy Whalen and Brian Coughlin be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, Kathy and Brian. We will move forward on this. Okay. Acceptance of minutes and recommendations.
Moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Lpat. Be it resolved that council approve the minutes of the following meetings. Minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 18th, 2021, and that council accept the meetings of the following committee meetings. Minutes of the TPR Committee of Management meeting held November 23rd, 2020. Minutes of the Museum Advisory Committee meeting held February 24th, 2021. And minutes of the TPR Committee of Management meeting held March 1st, 2021.
All in favor? Motion carried. Yep. We're just going to have a short break, 3 or 4 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Thank you. We'll resume. Reports of municipal officers and communications. Verbal update on COVID-19. Ms. Sacramento.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Council. Since our last Council meeting, the Province of Ontario has released a cautious 3-step plan to guide a safe and gradual reopening of the province and the lifting of public health measures based on the province-wide vaccination rate and improvement in public health indicators. The province allowed a step before step 1 as of May 20th, which allowed the opening of sports fields, tennis and basketball courts, the skate park, and outdoor fitness equipment with the following restrictions. Individuals must remain 2 meters from others not in their own household, and team sports or any other game that results in individuals coming within 2 meters of each other would not be practiced or played. 1 day later, on May 21st, the province added the ability to open splash parks. All of our amenities, as allowed by the order, were opened on May 20th, with the exception of the splash park due to the temperatures hovering around 0 at night up until this week. We now have had the water turned on, and we're gearing up for an opening later this week. Step 1 is expected to begin the week of June 14th and will allow outdoor fitness classes and sports training. We are pleased that we will be offering 11 outdoor classes a week, from boot camps to spin classes, run clubs, seniors classes, and moving youth, as well as 3 virtual classes. We will also host an outdoor adult drop-in 2 mornings a week at Civic Park, where participants will be able to partake in shuffleboard, bocce ball, pickleball, and urban bowling. Day camps are also set to begin in Step 1. The library will be able to open in Step 2, which will commence at least 21 days after the commencement of Step 1. The community complex and the Museum of Northern History will be able to open in Step 3, which will be at least another 21 days. As a reminder to all, additional ventilation does assist in reducing the spread of the virus, as does the mandated wearing of PPE when within 2 meters of another individual not in your household. PPE includes a medical mask as well as approved eye protection. For additional clarity, this information was released just a few hours ago by the province. The stay-at-home order required Ontarians to remain at home except for the purposes set out in the order, such as exercise, going to the grocery store or pharmacy, or accessing healthcare services. Once the stay-at-home order expires tomorrow, these restrictions will no longer be in effect. However, all other existing measures will remain in place province-wide, including restrictions on gatherings, businesses, services, and activities. This includes limiting indoor gatherings to households only and outdoor gatherings up to 5 people, subject to limited exceptions, maintaining a cap of 25% capacity for essential retail where only certain goods are permitted to be sold, restricting non-essential retail to curbside pickup and delivery only. Although Ms. Schumacher, Executive Director of TPR, does not have an update for COVID, I would like to take a moment to recognize that today is the first day of Seniors Month and to thank all of the staff for their incredible work during the past year to provide a safe sanctuary for our seniors. This concludes the COVID update for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sackreger. Any questions or comments from council? Councillor Owen?
One question. What's our COVID count in Temiskaming today?
From the last I read, we are still at 0. I'm hopefully I haven't missed a report.
So I think that's pretty impressive, especially considering what's happening in the district right next to us, where there is interaction. I think it's due to the efforts of the residents following the guidelines and the restrictions, and I'd just like to congratulate everybody and ask them to keep being friendly and being safe. Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to receive?
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that the verbal COVID-19 update be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.2, proposed 2021 budget. CAO Don Studholme.
Well, there has been a few changes since 2 weeks ago. We presented you the budget for 2021. As you see the sheets in front of you, we now have the actual column for 2020 in there. So that's the actual money that we actually spent in last year in 2020. That's all meeting with the auditor's blessings and requirements. So those are your official documents for 2020 and what we need in moving things forward. Now you look at your percentage increase, which is the outside, that's budget to budget comparison. That's not actual to budget, because 99% of your time, your actual is usually below what your budget requirements are. And, and when I was preparing this and when council directed this to me, they told me to keep it between 1.5% and 4%, which we have done. So if we're looking at comparing actual to budget, you're not comparing apples to apples there, because your budget is going to be higher than your actual, because until you start expensing these dollars in 2021, which a lot of these areas you have, you're going to, not meet that requirement of 4%. Could be less, could be more. I'm guessing it's probably going to be less, but that's where we're at the moment. So, comment that was brought last time was in regards to our capital plan. There was in regards to the new backhoe. that we didn't need to do two, well, we're not doing two backhoes. We budgeted for one backhoe. It was brought to our attention that we shouldn't be budgeting for one backhoe. However, it's my recommendation to you guys to do one backhoe and then do another backhoe next year. You're looking at our two dates for our backhoes are 206 and 210. And actually the 210 one has more hours than the 206 does. But a lot of expense have gone into these repairing of these new backhoes, anywhere from 42 to 55,000 over the last 3 years. So significant impact in regards to the backhoes. The other one was the new truck box hopper. Once again, you know, our present hopper is completely rusted, right to nothing. So you really don't have a choice but to go ahead and replace that new truck hopper, or else we just don't offer that service out there in regards to providing sanding and salt to our streets. The rest of the areas are where we're at, as far as we know right now. Our MIS, once again, a big portion of that is going to be funded through government dollars, but we haven't got those government dollars as of yet. So, you know, we're going to hold off on that for a while until we meet where we're supposed to be, which would be approximately 177,800 out of the 215,000. And I guess that is about it. The TPR funding, a lot of it's COVID funding. So if we don't get the COVID funding, we're not going to go ahead with those particular projects. But at the moment, we are putting them in there. And, you know, it's 100% COVID though. So it's not costing us anything in regards to those aspects. And the other one is the admin, the machine stuffing. So once again, we're going to hold off until the last second in regards to the machine stuffing, because it's one of those areas that we're not sure whether it's going to be a good buy for us right now, or whether there's a better product on the market. Anyways, we're researching that, and we'll make the decision until we're sure that what we have will actually fulfill our needs. The last thing that council directed me to was in waterworks and water and waterworks, that we should be looking at a 1 or 2% increase into water and waterworks. I would tend to agree with that, mainly because our oh, did I leave that on my desk? Yes, I must have. Is it? I don't think it is. No, I don't think it is. But anyways, basically what we're looking at is that we don't have much money left in our revenues for water and waterworks. So we're looking at doing two things. One is either 1% or a 2% increase, and that was the recommendation that council made last week or 2 weeks ago. So for water, a 1% increase is 26,785, and a 2% increase is 53,570. And waterworks, 1% increase is 18,945, and a 2% is 37,890. Now, it's my recommendation to you guys that we go ahead with a 2% increase. That's you know, well within where we should be. And it does provide a little bit of extra dollars into our reserves for water and waterworks. And that would give us, we're under $1 million under each of those two categories. But at least it provides us with something to work on for, could be next year, but in reality, I'm thinking it's going to be 2 years before you're going to have enough money in water to be able to move ahead with water projects. Because if the capital project involves something in regards that needs water, which is basically everything we're doing this year, and I can pretty well tell you next year, the year after that, it's always going to be water, 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 and you can't take money out of your your tax levy to pay for water accounts. Water accounts have to be self-sustainable. So that's where we're at with that. And I think that's what I have now at the moment. Now, the other thing I asked for is that if we could have a special meeting of council next Tuesday to go over the final documents for public works, which is the increase in the tax that everybody is paying and what the impact of that is on the projects. And then on the 15th, we can move ahead and do a full public presentation of our budget and where we stand in regards to that. So anyways, I throw that open and looking for comments.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, ever since I've been on council, I've been asking for documentation about vehicles. And I have not received any. And I know we have a program for fleet management that is underutilized. And it's very frustrating because I'm sitting here now, I'm spending the residents of Kirkland Lake's money. And I don't have the information. I have how old the vehicles are. But when I worked the first budget, I did get information on one vehicle, or actually on all that department's vehicles, and the oldest vehicle was the cheapest one to operate. So I can't recommend the purchase of any vehicles or equipment because I don't have the information that I requested and have requested on numerous occasions to go out and spend the residents' money. Now, just saying that you want something doesn't mean you should have it or can have it, especially not under the fiscal restraints that we are currently standing. I'm also not happy about buying a third zero radius turn lawnmower. When we combined all the grass cutting into one department, the equipment was to be shared on all the lawn cutting. And now we get a request specific to the cemetery for a $15,000 machine. Well, that's not how it was supposed to work. And anybody who's ever operated machinery knows the more hours you work, the better you get paid off on it. I think there are creative ways the same amount of grass can get cut with the two, but it might mean telling someone that they're not working 8:30 to 4:30. Maybe they're working from noon till 8, but you keep the equipment operating that many more hours per day and you save the taxpayers another $15,000. I think we should also do a review of the amount of grass that we cut at the airport. I took a drive up there today, but it was very difficult to see. But it seems to me that we're cutting a lot more grass up there than we need to. I don't know what the regulations are for an airport. So anyways, I'm not in favor of purchasing any vehicles because no information was brought forward to council, no documentation, and it's not good enough for me to spend that much of ratepayers' money based on someone saying we need it. Thank you.
Well, okay, I've only been here for 3 months. This is news to me. I've heard you mention fleet maintenance before, but I talk around to people. Nobody seems to know what fleet maintenance is. So what exactly, Councillor Owen, are you looking for in regards to fleet maintenance? What information do you want on this document so I can bring you what you're looking for, and I would have this to you before the end of the week?
I asked for it last meeting, but that's neither here nor there.
No, you asked for a committee, and that was it.
We have a program where all the repairs are supposed to be entered in for each vehicle, so we know exactly how much it costs to operate the vehicles.
Okay,
I
so
have-
is that what you're looking for?
Eh?
Is that what you're looking for?
Well, I'd like that, but I got a feeling from previous inquiries that it's not used, or it's used very little. But
So,
each piece of equipment that they're requesting, I want to see what the repairs were and how much it cost the taxpayers during the past year. Now, once the budget passed, I will be bringing forward a motion for a complete review of fleet management, because there are mid-sized pickup trucks, and I see a lot of full-size pickup trucks running around with, you know, a few shovels and a rake or whatever in the back. There are less expensive vehicles to replace the ones we have now. In the last, I believe it was the last budget, or it may have been 2 budgets ago, I asked the CBO at the time what he carried with him. Did he need a pickup to do his job? And he told me no, and he agreed to use a company car instead. At that time, we had one available. That never happened. Now, recently, I was involved with the building department, and our building inspector came to do an inspection, and she was driving a full-size pickup truck. All she had with her was a notebook, a phone, a pen, and a tape measure. Do we really need the vehicles we have? Do we really need the vehicles that are being asked for now? I don't know. And it's something that's never been looked into. So.
well, the only thing I can mention to you about this, Rick, is that every vehicle is anywhere from 11 to 15 years old. So that's the only way I can answer that report to you. And there's only 3 vehicles.
Yeah.
So
That's considerable money if like I say, the last time I got figures, I think it was the only time I got figures. Sorry, the oldest vehicle was the cheapest to run. So, I mean, I need more than the age of the vehicle.
yeah, I know. Yeah, you've mentioned this several times, that the oldest vehicle was the shortest one as far as dollars go to operate, but I never heard anything beyond that aspect. So how old was that vehicle? How many miles was on that vehicle? What was that vehicle used for? So on and so forth. Those are the things that I need to know if you want me to bring back a report to you guys summarizing that.
I don't have that information. Staff has that information.
So you're telling me this based on what, Rick? I'm trying to get a handle on things here so I can get you the information you need.
And I told you what I needed. I want the repair bills for the last year on each vehicle that is planned to be replaced.
Okay.
So we can see the cost of operating. And then after the budget's passed, then I'm going to be putting forward a motion to do a complete fleet management review. But for now, I want the facts and figures so I can make an educated decision here and not just spend money because somebody asked me to.
Yeah, Rick, if I may mention, the fleet management is part of the asset management program, so it should all work into that same program. And I'm not sure exactly where we're at on that as we speak. Don?
What was that? I'm sorry.
The asset management plan?
No idea, because I'm not in here doing asset management. So that's whoever comes in to replace me will be dealing with asset management.
Okay.
Just a question, Your Worship. Do we not have a fleet management plan in place? I mean, with all these vehicles, I mean, as a small size company like myself, I do have one. suppose anybody that has more than 2 vehicles, you must have one at least. That would be telling you the age of the vehicles, the mileage, and all of that stuff. So that would be really be part of that, so that you know when it's coming up, what is coming up to be replaced and what's not, and all of that stuff. Do we not have something? That's what Rick is asking for. And I think he talked about this last meeting too. This request is not a new one anyways, that as far as, that's been on the table. So the question is, it must be something that could be easily retrieved, because people will keep track of vehicles, especially for driving it. They must have the log saying the mileage when you pick it up and the mileage when you bring it back and all of that stuff, and whatever repairs that are done over a month or two. So the question is, it's a very simple answer for him, information to retrieve. So the question is, who has it? Is there one, or everybody just doing their own thing? I don't know.
I don't think there's much.
My gut feeling, and I think we went through this before, Rick, was that it's like a card system, which is about 25 years in the past, in today's technology. And why the fleet management program was never used, I don't know. But it's been an issue for quite some time.
Well, I mean, if we have a repair in-house, which I believe that you guys do because you have all the mechanics and whatnot, well, that would be easy to quantify how many, what time is spent on all the vehicles, and of course the parts that were purchased. I just thought that information should be something that should be readily be available to us here, so that we can make a good guess as to what needs to be replaced and the reason why we're replacing it. Everybody should. I don't know. Is there one? Is there anything, any documentation on any of the vehicles that they run around having a Ccaa logo? Yeah, there must be. No. Oh, okay. That's a surprise to me. But anyway.
No, there isn't. And if there is, I don't know about it.
Well, I think we should find out from the department head and something like that, because I can just imagine people running around with a vehicle that are not documenting the kilometer in and out, and not documenting the repairs that will be needed over a period of time. Because when they start costing you more money to repair vehicles, then you got to do your cost and benefit analysis and say, well, am I better off to keep this guy or just get rid of it? But then you got to look at the numbers. So if nobody is actually tallying those numbers and look at those figures, well, I guess, that's not good.
Maybe shine a little light on that subject.
Yeah, please.
We do track all the numbers for each individual piece of equipment. The problem that we're having is that it's not being put together and having a fleet management program. We are in the works in gathering all that data. We have a contract with PSD that is gathering information for us, and with the idea of replacing our current asset management program with a new one. So this is in the works. This is something that we're working on at the moment. And you're not incorrect by saying that there was an existing program, but underutilized. The data is there, but it's not being compiled properly to give us a good overview of what's going on. So the data is there, and we are working on that, and we're hoping to get that in the works by this year. And we need the finance to be on board with that, and we're trying to gather data this time.
Let's give Councillor Adams a chance to speak.
Yep, so third year doing the budget. So I'm still not in favor of supporting the backhoe or the truck at $50,000. These things don't just pop out of nowhere that we need them. Asset management plan would actually show year over year deterioration. So as a compromise, I would almost go with halving those amounts, halving those, and that way you have half now and half for next year. So we don't give sticker shock to the ratepayers, because We do know these things are going to get replaced, but we haven't had a system yet to put money aside to pay for these things. So in a year of a pandemic where businesses are closed and they're not making any money, and we're going to ask them for money because we didn't know these things were deteriorating, I have difficulty with that. So my solution is either get rid of those options of the 175 loader or the $50,000 truck, or a nice compromise of $25,000 for a truck so we can replace it next year, build those stepping stones so it's not a surprise, and even half the 175. We have an asset plan. We know about it. These things aren't surprises that we need to replace them. We need to take some real steps to go year over year so these things aren't sticker shock. That's where I am on this. I'm probably going to stick to 1% for the water, but I can either remove those items, that's what I'm in favor of, or see them come back at half.
Councillor Owen, did you want to make another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I'm not slamming town staff for not doing their job. We know there's been changes in management over there, and I think that's maybe a big part of the reason that the changes have been slower. But as a councillor, I'm very frustrated because I need information. I need information so I can make informed choices. I'm not comfortable spending that much money without some documentation. And it may have sounded like I was slamming some of the town staff, but that's just my frustration coming out with the situation. And hopefully we can reach a compromise. I can live with the compromise that Councillor Adams suggested, because we've been pushing for that, you know, we know things are going to wear out, but no one's ever putting money away for it. Another perfect example is the fire truck. I mean,
yeah.
We've known almost since the day we bought it that there were, which predates this council, that there were problems with that truck, and yet it was never included in any budget, so that when it comes time to replace it, the residents aren't hit with sticker shock. So I can certainly go along with Councillor Adams' suggestion. And again, I just apologize to any staff people that may have thought I was slamming them, because that certainly was not my intent. We have good, hardworking staff at the town, and I'm very proud of them.
Could we include that recommendation to see how it's going to affect the budget?
Well, it's going to obviously have a positive impact on your budget. Whenever you take money that you're spending away from your budget, it's going to have a positive impact on your budget. So there's no questions about that.
So, I mean, it is a form of putting in reserve, which
it's a form of putting into reserve until your backhoe blows this year, and then you got no money to go and purchase a new backhoe. That's the only issue that you're facing.
That's a risk.
That's a risk. It is a risk. And I'm not saying that risk is going to happen. I'm just saying that's a possibility. And if it becomes a possibility, then council will have to make that decision on what to do to replace that backhoe at that point in time. So that's all I'm saying. The $50,000 on the truck, you know, it is what it is. You know, and I'm fine with that. And then you have another truck over here in Joe Mavernack, which was an 11-year-old truck. You know, once again, you know, it's and I can't understand why it's 35,000 or 35 for Joe Mavernack, 35 for the development, but 50,000 for public works. But anyways, that I'll get to you, and I'll send that off to each and every one of you sometime this week before Friday.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Stacy?
I just have a question. What is the alternative? If we choose not to replace any of these vehicles, would that put the departments at risk? Or is it a possibility that they can function without these 3 vehicles altogether? Has that been considered? I know that these are older vehicles, and with older vehicles, there's issues with insurance and liabilities, but has the departments considered whether they actually need these vehicles, or are we just replacing them because they are vehicles that they have always had? So I'd really like that question to be put forth to department heads. Is this going to be too taxing on their departments if we simply remove those vehicles altogether from our fleet?
Are we talking about the backhoes? Or are we talking about the pickups?
The pickups. There's 3 of them.
Yes, there's 3 of them in your budget this year. Because what I need some direction tonight on where you want to go and what do you want to do. And the thing is, I hear something from somebody, something else from somebody else, a third thing from somebody else. So, and that's always the issue about having Zoom, is that you're not sitting in the room talking to one another. And that puts our job as staff very difficult, because we're trying to get a handle on what you guys are doing, and you guys are operating as 7 different individuals in regards to what you want. And so I'm not saying we can't do it, just that we need to have some type of consensus from where everybody's at. Councillor Owens.
I'm in favor of what Councillor Adams proposed. Realistically, we're not even going to get these trucks in 2021. You drive by Pinewood, you drive by any dealership in the country, they do not have trucks, they do not have vehicles to sell us anyway. We ran through that problem with the rescue truck that got purchased at Georgian out of Barrie. Put it in 2020 budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, we received it in 2021. So why tax the taxpayers extra in 2020 when, if we put a bit of money aside this year, 2021 right off the bat, if we know we're going to be changing, then you can start the process early 2021, put out your RFPs for your 3 trucks and go from there.
Okay, Councillor Ivanov.
Yeah, and I'm also comfortable with Patrick's suggestion of us putting money away for a $50,000 truck, putting $25,000 in this year, and put the balance in next year's budget. Same with the 175 for the backhoe. And I see the backhoes around, so I know Councillor White's idea of getting rid of one, or maybe getting rid of a truck. The trucks I'm not certain about, but the backhoes are all over town, so I'm sure that one would be insufficient. As far as the water budget, I suggest we do 2%. I hate to see us using up all our reserves to have a 1%. I'd love to have a 0%. That's, ultimately, but I know what's going to happen is because next year you're going to come back with a 10% increase in water, and we're going to, or potentially could, and I wouldn't want that to be the legacy of this council. After we had our horrible first year trying to rectify the water issue, the cost of water. So thank you.
I'm in agreement with what you're saying, Councillor Ivanov, as to what Councillor Adams has proposed as well. I said for years, it's not just our council, but previous councils throughout the year failed to put any money away at all. At least this is a start. I'd like at some point where we come up with a reserve policy in general, but that's not going to go in this budget, obviously, but it's something to think about going forward. So, Councillor, I don't know.
My final comment on the lawnmower for the cemetery. I know that the cost savings were in the operations. You weren't going to spend as much money in having somebody out there working. So if a zero turn saves you the cost of that, the total cost of that lawnmower in the first year just in wages, then I think it's a wise investment, because that lawnmower will be there for the next 10 years likely, and those cost savings will be there for the next 9 years after it's paid for. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen?
As I said, with rejigging schedules, you can get the same number of hours, or virtually the same number of hours out of 2 machines as you could 3. And when this whole concept of putting all the grass cutting under one umbrella was brought forward, we were told equipment wouldn't be site specific. It would be moved throughout the town. And that's why I put that forward, because I think it can be done, but I'm not on the forefront, obviously, but I'm looking to save the residents as much money as we can. And we were told there wouldn't be site-specific grass cutting equipment. So I think it's time to get a little creative about how we do business in the town, instead of continually doing it the same way over and over and over again. Because they've always worked 8 till 4, well, that's what they'll work this year. Maybe there's a better way, and that's how we're going to save money. Thank you.
Councillor Shabba?
Yeah, I'm in favor of what Councillor Patrick Adams suggested. However, back to Councillor White's question, I don't know if the staff can comment on that. And her question, if I may, was that what would be the danger of delaying the purchase of this the pickup trucks? I think that's what your question was. Like, what would be the implications if we delay purchasing those trucks till next year? And then my other problem is that, it's $50,000 this year, but as you know, prices are going up and cost of living allowance going up, so it may not be $50,000 next year. But anyways, so what if the staff that's in charge of this can answer that? We leave this off and follow what Councillor Patrick Adams has suggested, which I think is a good idea. You got to put money away for rainy days anyways. But what would be the implications of just not doing much this time around and then wait till next year? Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to have 3 department heads answering to Stacy, because you're going to have Steph answer to you, you're going to have Wilf answer to you, and you're going to have Bonnie answer for you. So, Steph, can you answer that question?
I know right now that we have 2 road supervisors, and they're operating under 1 pickup truck right now, which is very inefficient, especially that we're trying to build 2 separate teams for the public works. So right now, we're seeing loss of efficiency when it comes to the supervision. So that's where we're seeing it the most. And with students coming around, they oftentimes need a pickup truck for mobility. So yeah, it's unfortunate right now to see always a road supervisor that's without a pickup truck to make his job more efficient. So logically, I think that each supervisor should have a pickup truck.
Okay, Will?
We can beg, steal, or borrow. We've done it before.
Okay.
Will knows how it's been.
Sadly.
Bonnie, are you there?
Certainly, yes, we can provide that information that Councillor Owen and probably everyone else is looking for, not a problem.
So do you need your truck that you're asking to replace?
We do need the truck that we're asking to replace in order to get the staff to the different locations that they need to do the work. Right now, we have 2 supervisors using their own vehicles. And that's without replacing the truck. So replacing a truck still has us with 2 supervisors using their own vehicle. And that's not including 3 other supervisors that use their own vehicles that are not in parks. So we do have a lot of staff right now that work for the town that we don't have enough vehicles for.
Councillor Owen?
I have a suggestion. Why doesn't development and works get together and work out a deal where the building inspector's full-size four-wheel drive pickup truck could be transferred over to works from development, and then development buy a car for the building inspector, which would be less insurance, less gasoline, and less cost to purchase.
Good point, Councillor Owen, and yes, we are doing that at the moment. So that is something that we're bringing forward, and we are working because we have development and public works working under one leadership because we couldn't find a director to take over development. So that is happening.
Go ahead, Will.
Yes, and we do move back and forth with the vehicles constantly. Back at you, Counselor. Don't go for a car, then go for a mini pickup. I mean, the first time they could take a drive out to Nettie or something like that, which is kind of on the agenda, in the middle of the spring, we'll be sending 2 trucks out to get them back out again.
You know, can we not get a 4-wheel drive, like not a sedan, but you know, a 4-wheel drive a car?
You
like
could, but you'll also be leaving your muffler lying there somewhere probably. And the thing is too, that when she does go out and does have other things that are going on at the same time, at least that would be a more practical piece of equipment. And if the other departments borrow it, then at least it does meet their needs as well. Just a suggestion.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. It's a step in the right direction, and that's all I want to see. I want to see us make progress. And I agree with Wilf's comment, but it would have to be a 4-wheel drive mid-size, but it's less expensive than a truck and would be more serviceable for other departments to use. So I agree 100%, Wilf. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Can I just say something then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I got to bring this back to you guys next week for your stamp and your approval. So I just want to make sure that what I'm doing or what I'm bringing forward to you is going to meet your needs. I don't want to come and have the same discussion next week, just like I had it 2 weeks ago and 2 weeks before that. So anyway, so we're moving the pickup truck from Public Works budget and the backhoe. And we're going to take half of that money and put it into a reserve. Is that correct with everybody sitting around the table? Put your hands up if you agree with that.
Hang on. I'm confused here for a second, which is nothing new. But we have the truck from development that we could transfer over to road.
Done, Richard.
Eh?
That is being done. I told you that 5 minutes ago. That is being done.
Okay, then we don't need to buy. Okay.
Okay, so
Yep.
that is being done. And I'll also I'll talk to my department heads. I can't promise that'll be ready to me by the end of the week, but looking at doing a fleet committee in regards to what you're looking for, which is a list of all our vehicles, a list of how many mileage we're putting on a year, how much do we spend on that operating that vehicle, both gas and with repairs to the vehicle. Now, is that what you're looking for in regards to your fleet machine committee?
It's good for now. Thank you.
Okay, everybody else is fine with that. And then otherwise, we're going to go ahead with what I presented to you in regards to the operating capital budget. Is that correct? Now, I'm not talking about water yet. Correct? Yes, no, shake your head, put up your hand, whatever. Woo! Okay,
Okay,
and then water, I gave you two amounts. One is 1% and one is 2%. Now, I know what Patrick's saying. But, you know, who wants, you know, so I guess the question is, do you want 1% or 2%? And let's start with 1%.
I prefer 2%, that we could build in the reserve. 2%, I'm fine with 2%.
Okay, well, we're going to put up our hands. So 1%, who wants 1%? Oh, Patrick's not putting up his hand. Okay, so who wants 2%? Okay, so we're going with 2% for water and waterworks. And that will be in the budget next week. Now, what we're doing next week is I'll come back to you with a breakdown of the budget, of our capital, and also what the impact on our impact to our taxpayers are going to be. And that should be roughly under 3%. It should be 2 point something, and then we'll go from there. Is that fine with everybody?
sounds good.
Okay, good then. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have a motion to accept CAO's budget report.
Moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Casey Owens, be it resolved that memorandum number 2021-CAO-13M entitled 2021 budget be received, and that staff be directed to continue to make changes and bring the final document to a special meeting of council on June 8th, 2021 for review before the final passing at the June 15th, 2021 regular meeting of council.
All in favor? Motion carried. Point 3, O&R passenger train service. Don Studholm, interim CAO.
Yeah, so this is something, Lad brought this forward, that we should be doing something in support of, you know, the passenger train service, that it's not stopping in Kirkland Lake. It's going to drive right way to us as it's going through Swastika. So, you know, that's not good for Kirkland Lake. That has always been a part of the O&R service since the turn of the century, basically, since 1905 or whatever. So, you know, it's something that we need to get out there. And so what I'm recommending is that, you know, if any of you guys have any comments to put into that letter, then just send me an email. I'll add that into the letter. And then I'll send that off to the head of the O&R. And then what I'll also ask for the head of the O&R is to meet with council, or to have 1 or 2 council members meeting with the O&R president in regards to what we would like to see for the O&R passenger train service. You know, they have, you know, they leveled off where the station was, but there's still, you know, nice little spot of land there that you could put a very small little service in there that can be heated, that can handle whatever it may be, up to 10 people or something, in regards to, you know, catching the passenger train as it goes by. And that shouldn't cost the O&R a ton of money to do that. And it should continue to provide that passenger train service that we so desperately need in Kirkland. So that's my suggestion.
Comments, Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I'm in full support of this. Last time I took the train, I actually picked it up in Grimsby, which is in the Golden Horseshoe. They don't have a train station, they have a platform. So in a highly developed area, they had a platform. So for us to have that up here is pretty simple to do. So I'm in full support of this, and thank you very much, members of staff that brought this forward for us to get behind, because this is something that's for our community, and I'm fully supportive of it.
Councillor Stacy.
Yeah, I would like this also to be included in the AMO delegations. Councillor Shaba brought this up, and I believe that that would be a good second step to accompany not only this letter, but to bring it up at AMO with the ministers as well.
I believe we have that in the proposal, no?
But we were gonna, it's the next topic, and yeah, we can put that in.
Okay, I agree. Councillor Ivanov.
Yeah, I think we should be dragging our MPP back into council too, and have some consultation with him. He should be part of this, and I think he should be. We should have another meeting with him anyway. I think he's, these guys are being paid the bucks to represent us. They should be at council more regular than they have been. He's had one meeting with us in 3 years, I guess, basically. And this should be an ongoing thing. He should be meeting with us. I think Charlie also should be meeting with us. I feel that this is probably something he should be taking back to the government also, not just with the ONR. The provincial people should be working on this with us. Thank you.
I agree. Councillor Shaba.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I was on the board of ONR for 6 years and whatnot, and I know that it's very difficult to try to look at all the where the money is coming from and expenses and whatnot. But it's not going to take much to put in a small building in Swastika, especially now that they've demolished the old bigger building there. So we should put the pressure on the commission. I agree we should start from the chair of the commission, Karina Moore. She should be speaking to us. That letter should invite her to council to talk to us about this. And I would further recommend that the council strike a committee to follow up, and then follow up all the way down to the Minister of Transportation if needs be, because we can't drop the ball here, guys. This is the planning stage. This is the time to exert maximum pressure to make sure that we're in it. We're in the plan. So we got to keep it up. So I support us inviting the chairwoman of Ontario Northland to come and meet with us. And I support creating a subcommittee of interested councillors to essentially keep things rolling. We can't drop this ball here, but we got to make sure that we're part of it. Thank you.
So the only thing I'll ask is if everybody can get me comments to me by Thursday afternoon, I'll include that in my letter to Madam Moore on Friday, and it'll go out Friday afternoon. Okay. Yeah, music is on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, so I do have the mover as Lad Shaba, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Councillor Shaba, to that recommended motion, sounds like you would like me to add a line that also says that we invite the chair of ONR to come meet with TKL and look into forming a committee.
That's correct. That's what I like to see. I just don't want us to just visit this issue and then the next time around it's all disappear. We have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep it alive.
Okay.
I think we'd like to have the MPP Bantoff included in that.
Yeah.
The owner.
Okay. So moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Eugene Ivanov. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2021-CAO-009M, entitled ONR Passenger Train Service, be received. That staff be directed to forward to the ONR a list of issues around the train not stopping in Kirkland Lake to pick up or drop off passengers. And that we invite MPP Vantoff and the chair of ONR to come meet with TKL and look into forming a committee to address this issue.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.4, 2021 AMO delegation requests. Clerk Megan Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. In front of you is a quick memo to outline 3 topics that staff and council, like that we've heard, would be good ideas to request delegations for at the AMO conference. And we also included an attachment just to outline what was requested at last year's conference. So today we're just looking to have a little bit of a general conversation of if you are in favor of these 3 topics and any other topics that you would like. So based on just what we heard, I've also added to the list ONR passenger service in Swastika. And I'll leave it to you.
Councilor Rowan.
Yeah, when the Ford government got elected, they promised that they would share some of the mineral tax that they take from mining companies with municipalities. That hasn't happened. And with COVID and everything, we don't even hear talk of it anymore. So I think it's kind of important that we approach the province and find out what has happened to that. That was part of their mandate when they got elected. And I'd like to see them follow through, and hopefully it would result in additional revenue and smaller tax increases for the people of Kirkland Lake.
Can we have that done? Any other comments? Last year was a bit of a marathon. I think with these 4 or 5 subjects, we can make a stronger point of our wishes. I don't think we have to go through, I mean, last year the staff put together a Bible presentation to AMO for all the different ministers. It was exceptionally well done and a lot of work. Most of those ministers that we spoke to are still ministers. They just switched chairs, so I don't think there's a need to do that same introduction as we did last year. So I just thought I'd comment on that. And on these, it'll be short time frame to be able to put something like that together. So I don't think we need it, as we can refer to it. There's plenty of copies still around here as well, but I don't think it's necessary this year. Councillor Ivanov.
Yeah, I think we had talked about the museum with one of the ministers last year, and I think the communication was kind of misdirected. It was ended up going to somebody who really wasn't involved with the Ontario Heritage Fund. I think our foundation. So that might be part of the AMO if you can direct it to the correct person and try and get some resolution on what's happening with our museum. Thank you.
Yes, Don.
Bonnie and I are talking to the Ontario Heritage Trust on Wednesday or Thursday afternoon. And so, next Tuesday or the Tuesday after, I can give you an update in regards to what the Ontario Heritage Trust is thinking in regards to that building, our museum, and the future of anything in that building, because that's extremely important to all of us. And so we need to get a handle on where we're at with that.
That sounds good. Any other comments? We have a motion to accept the report.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that memorandum number 2021-CLK-16M entitled 2021 AMO delegation request be received, and that staff be directed to submit a request for delegations on the following topics: Connecting Link funding, opioid crisis, Pinnager, long-term care funding timelines, ONR passenger service in Swastika, and mineral tax sharing with municipalities.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.4 6.5 municipal accommodation tax. Will pass. Director of Economic Development.
Thank you, through you, your worship. I appreciate council must be getting a little tired. So I'm going to just take the Coles notes and take it through. May 4th meeting of council directed staff to continue the process of looking into implementing the municipal accommodation tax. I would refer to it as a MAT after this, and present a report providing a timeline on progress. The report highlights the steps that will be needed to implement it to bring the MAT to realization. Those are, in general, Town must establish an operational framework for collecting and utilizing the MAT, needs to identify and establish a partnership with an eligible tourism entity necessary to administer 50% of the revenue collected that is allocated to tourism marketing, needs to collectively define how those will be used. And number 4, culminates in a formal agreement which must include reasonable financial accountability measures to ensure that the amounts paid to the entity are used for the exclusive purpose of promoting tourism. The second major area of activity is the need to establish the administrative framework for the MAT, culminating in a bylaw that establishes the MAT for Kirkland Lake. Within the bylaw, it will define who the MAT is applied to, the mandatory and optional exemptions, define the rate, define the administrative fee, define compliance and enforcement. Once this has been considered, a bylaw is brought back, and once the bylaw has been passed, then the process of registering the eligible accommodation providers would take place, including training on remittance procedures, etc. There are key participants in the process. Economic development, that's basically liaising with the eligible tourism entity, accommodation providers, and public. Treasury, they carry the brunt of this, development of processes and procedures, ongoing administration of the MAT. Clerk and administration, bylaw development, council, direction and decision. Timeline for putting a MAT into place is a best guess scenario. The above could be done by September 2021, leaving council to decide the date the bylaw takes effect. For example, January 1st, 2022, whichever council directs. The reality, though, that in progress will be impacted by the changes and the challenges the corporation is facing, particularly within administration and treasury. You are missing people, and you're taking on a lot of other systems and procedure development work. I do find that I have to just make that comment to you. So that's a really Reader's Digest Cole's Note version of what's in the report.
Mayor Kiley just had to step out. Councillor Adams, are you okay to jump in for a moment?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Councillor Shaba.
Yeah, thanks, Will, for the update. I think at the last meeting we said, well, not that we're not in full support of this, but we just felt that we needed time for the COVID thing to kind of clear up. And it looks as if we'll be all going to be okay come June, more so in September. So I'm in support of moving the this along, because it will be a source of revenue that the municipality will really need to do other things, such as you've indicated, tourism, and maybe we can have a few change to buy new trucks too, who knows. My question to you is that going forward, will there be any further consultation with all business partners, or that has been done with? And number 2 question, you talked about rolling that out. You said this September 2001, and then you said September 2022. So are you suggesting that going forward, then there will be maybe a grace period, a warning period, say, well, listen, we're going to pass this in September 2001, which I think is good, but it's not going to be effective till September 2022. Can you just go over those 2 questions for me? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd rather handle the second question first. And I think I had a typo in there. I was proposing that we have everything in place, if we can, by September 2021. Then it's at council's discretion. When do you want to implement it? Suggestion is January 1st, 2022. That's the original plan. The second question, or sorry, the first one. Help me out. What was the first one?
The first one, let me look at my post note here. I know
consultations.
This issue has been around, and I think there were consultations in the past. So as a moving forward, will there be further consultation, or we're done with consultation?
I think that based on what we've seen with the other communities, the most successful implementation has continuous consultations.
All right.
Council makes its decision, we bring it in, and we implement it one of the first consultations we really need to do is, do we have a partner in the tourism sector, a non-for-profit entity that promotes tourism? And within that, what are we going to spend that money on? What is the mandate? And I think that's where you do want to include the accommodation providers as part of that conversation.
Yeah.
The goal is to promote and to support the tourism, the attraction of more people to the community. They provide the accommodation. So what can we do? That I think should be there. The other one is within the municipality itself. You have the other 50%. And what are you going to do with it? You can use it for your general. In purposely, the province was emphasizing that you're using it again for tourism development. That can be interpreted pretty loosely too. I mean, if you're doing paving or repairs on government road that leads you into the tourists, into the community, that's kind of supporting tourism, right? But to buy a pickup truck for the landfill, not so much.
Oh, just kidding about that. I'm just.
Yeah, no, but it's a good example, right? To show that. That's why one of the recommendations that, or comments I put into the report was, perhaps council would also consider establishing a municipal accommodation tax development fund as a reserve, right? Put the money in there. You start to build it up, as well as you then have that discussion ongoing amongst yourselves as to how you wish to use it. And then we have a message that we're communicating with the accommodation providers, the public. So that is what I was saying. What I'm drawing from the conversation is, are there any comments, directions, strongly held feelings on who your partner is? The agency does have to be involved in tourism promotion. That's really important. They do have to have a framework for accountability, financial accountability. There has to be a proper agreement in place. That's why I attached some in the report. There are options out there. I don't know about if the Chamber of Commerce is actually interested. The reason being that part of the Chamber of Commerce's mandate is to pressure you for business.
Yeah.
And that's something to, they should not be put into a position of conflict like that. That's still, we can have that discussion. The other one, the Golden Corridor Snowdrifters. Arguably, that is their mandate, is tourism.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't have to be limited to winter, right? Obviously, they're administering a program in coordination with the municipality. They have some experience in that. Because they have been collecting a hotel tax over the past few years. This year, obviously, not much because of COVID.
Uh-huh.
They do have some experience working with that. They have good connections. We've worked with them annually in tourism promotion. We usually work with them and their organization, as well as the other funders, for a last kick promotional video opportunities, promotional items like that. So that could be another option too, but whichever one that council would like to see brought forward, at your discretion.
Councillor Owen?
Right now I'm leaning towards Golden Corridor Snowmobile Club, and on occasion I do watch snowmobiling shows on TV, and a lot of them are basically promotions for different areas. I've seen North Bay featured. I've seen farther south of North Bay featured. I've never seen the Kirkland Lake. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but I don't watch it all the time, but I've never seen the Kirkland Lake area featured. And yet when I watch those shows, and having been on the trails in this area, we have everything that they have. Also, when the accommodation tax comes into place, I mean, that's assuming that council passes it. It's highly unlikely that the motels are going to continue their donations to the Golden Corridor Snowmobile Club. And I don't think there's any organization in town that brings more out of town people to Kirkland Lake than the Snowmobile Club. And It's because, and largely late in the season, because we have snow when they don't have snow down south. So if they are interested, to me, that would be a natural fit. But other councillors may have ideas of organizations that haven't even been mentioned. But thank you.
First, CEO.
No, I don't want to say. Oh, no.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Adams.
Yeah, so I'm certainly in favor of how the motion is written to support this process and begin implementing. I think we can just begin implementing as we go and make those key decisions as we need to, just so that we can give you guys time to maybe start the process. And if you need more time to get it done, then certainly communicate that. I'm sure we can help with shortness of staff, as you're mentioning, Wilf. So I'm in favor of how the motion's read with continuing as implemented, just to get the basics going of what you need, and we can continue that conversation throughout multiple meetings.
Councillor Ivanov?
Yeah, you know what? Can you partner with more than one organization, Wilf? I mean, I'm thinking Fish and Game, because that's the other part of our tourism here. A lot of people come up, either fish or hunt. The people that do the bear thing and the people that have all the camps around here. Is that? And I know they have a huge organization. They have a huge membership. So yeah, I'm just thinking, does it have to be one partner, or can you have many partners?
In the other areas, I'm going to say that from my perspective, it should be one. The reason is that you do have to have a legal agreement. There has to be accountability, and that gets diluted as it's spread over different groups. In other communities, these different groups would have come together as well. I think that's asking a lot of them at this stage. Why not take one that can deliver and use the success to bring in the others if possible? Because that could be then changed into perhaps a non-for-profit corporation, of which are all members with a thing. But get it going first, keep it simple. A lot easier to argue with one or two people than 5 or 6.
Okay, I'm good with that.
I'm not saying we're going to argue, sorry.
Yeah, well, for curiosity, would there be some compensation for the group in collecting these fees, or what their role is?
There is the ability to charge an administrative fee. So if you collect $100 and $5 goes to administration. That is usually within the municipality. We can check to see how that can be shared with them. Okay, within the partner group, the dollars must go towards tourism promotion and activities that support that. Well, the administration is part of that, but we would want to proceed fairly carefully to see what others have done. We're not unique. We can pull from them. And yeah, we're not looking for someone to do something outside of their existing realm and without any kind of resources. We're not looking for that.
Well, if I may, kudos for putting this package together, because you brought a lot of examples of the forms that Kapuskasing is using, and this is going to help us get out of the gate a little quicker, not having to reinvent the wheel. So kudos for doing that legwork in advance.
Thank you. The department motto is beg, steal, or borrow. We're very good at that.
Good. Any other comments or questions?
So I do have the mover as Patrick Adams. I just made one little change just based on the conversation to the last line to say inclusive of continuing public consultations. Did you want to have it as that, or do you want it to just be the original?
Well, if other municipalities have continued conversations and consultations, I think that's just the best way to have a partnership through this.
Okay. Moved by Patrick Adams, seconded by Rick Owen. Be it resolved that report number 2021-DEV-022 entitled Municipal Accommodation Tax be received, and that staff be directed to begin the process of implementing the municipal accommodations tax as per the process outlined in this report, inclusive of continuing public consultations on the matter.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.6, FedNor application for funding on biomass availability study. Mr. Haas.
Yeah, this is just paper shuffling. I want to put an application in for funding to research what this sector, how we could fit within the sector, what kind of content do we have available around here, how accessible it is. And when I put an application in, they usually ask for a resolution from council saying they support the application. It's not a deal for funding. That will come later. If we are successful, we through a stage 2, then we'll come back for a bylaw to enter into an agreement. That's all.
Any questions, comments?
Moved by Casey Owen, seconded by Lpat, be it resolved that report number 2021-DAV-024 entitled FedNor application for funding biomass availability study be received, and that staff be directed to submit an application for funding to the Federal Economic Development Initiative for Northern Ontario in support of a study to conduct a biomass availability study.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 6.7, awarding of RFP 564-21 arena refrigeration retrofit. Ms. Sackrider.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, this is a good news item. So we did issue an RFP for the arena refrigeration repairs that we've spoken about in the past, and we had 2 different companies submit. Their scores were very close, to tell you the truth. They're both very experienced companies who have done a lot of these types of exchanges in the north. The one that did come in with a slightly higher rate was due to their price, so they did have a lower price. The price does actually come in at under the funded amount. So we have full funding from the Canada Infrastructure Program for this project. What I'd like to ask Council to do is that we can approve additional work that is required to be done in the arena to make sure that we maximize this funding. This funding has to be used for arena refrigeration retrofit. So I'm not sure if you remember, we did have a 5-year capital plan that you've seen in the past, and it does have a number of arena items on there to be for over the years as time goes on. So we don't have specifically what we'd like to, we have our ideas of what our next priorities are, and we're just not sure where the dollar figure would come in, but we'd like to see if we can negotiate with a successful bidder to see if they can do additional work to the maximum of the grant amount so that we don't return it.
Comments or questions? Councillor Owen.
Okay, this is going to come as a shock, but I agree with the stock writer. I know I'm spending money, but that's okay because it would cost us a lot more to do anything on our own. And we've been approved for that amount. And if we can use it to do some necessary maintenance that we're going to have to do in 2 years, it makes sense to do it at less impact on the people of Kirkland Lake. So I'm all in favor.
And just to comment on that, this is one of the funds that's actually 100% provided by the province. So we don't even have our 10% or 20% we have to put in.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. So now I'm even more than 100% behind finding an approved project because we're going to end up paying 100% if there's no grants available when the equipment does need replaced. So yeah, good deal.
Totally agree. Any other comments? Questions? Good motion.
Moved by Eugene Ivanoff, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that report number 2021-CF-13 entitled Award of RFP 564-21 Arena Refrigeration Retrofit be received. That council hereby awards the contract to complete arena refrigeration retrofit for the town of Kirkland Lake to Northland Group of Companies in the amount of $163,254.75 plus HST. That staff is hereby authorized to approve additional work as part of the arena refrigeration retrofit that corresponds to approved items in the agreement. that the required monies in the amount of $203,191 be allocated from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Grant Fund, and that staff be directed to present a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Northland Group of Companies to conduct arena plant refrigeration upgrade for the town of Kirkland Lake.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 7, consideration of notices of motion. Councillor Owen has introduced a motion here that as a mover, you require a seconder. Would anybody else? Councillor Adams will second that. You want to read the motion? Any discussion first?
Um,
No.
Oh, Councillor Owen, go ahead.
I just want to say that as a council, I think we would be negligent in doing our job if we didn't look into every possibility of making this a safer community for everyone. So that's my incentive to follow through with this motion. Thank you.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that staff be directed to contact our 911 service provider and the ONR to arrange for 911 operators to inform the ONR dispatch service when emergency first responder vehicles need to respond to an emergency west of the ONR tracks crossing Highway 66 in Swastika.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 8, introduction, reading, and consideration of bylaws.
We have 2 bylaws this evening. The first one is to do with the Culvert Park Operating Authority. Ms. Sackrider, did you want to speak on this at all?
Certainly, I can give just a brief overview, and I'll certainly ask my counterpart, Mr. Haas, to join me as well, because he's been involved quite a bit. So we started to work on updating the Culvert Park Operating Authority agreement last year in 2020 because the current one had expired. A number of things have happened. The operating authority have become incorporated, so that's a lot of protection for them. After they did that, one of our goals was to make sure that we can reduce the cost to the municipality as much as we can and provide the support to them to operate. They're a phenomenal group of volunteers that provide a really good service. So that was kind of where we were going with that. Mr. Haas has been doing the last few bits of meetings with the operating authority representatives, and he can maybe speak to some of the things that we've agreed upon that we put in this agreement that they're in favor of, and where their struggles were as well.
Okay. Again, me and my Coles notes. The proposed agreement reviewed all the terms and conditions for clarity and applicability, specifically insurance requirements, managing liability, indemnification, etc., according to guidance provided by the town's insurance provider. Perhaps the most significant change, however, is in Section 10, payment in lieu of taxes. Previously, the park was assessed at $109,000, but classed as exempt by MPAC, so there were no taxes, not for the town, not for the operating authority. The previous CAO directed staff to contact MPAC to determine if this classification was still valid, as the authority was operating a not-for-profit business there. Any taxes levied on the area operated by the authority, not the whole park, would then become the authority's responsibility to pay. MPAC indicated that the property may change to a residential assessment. That's similar to what you find in the parks elsewhere in the region. The applicable taxes would be based on the permanent structures on location that contribute to earning revenue. There aren't very many. It's a garage and a couple of sheds in that. We anticipate, and this is very much anticipation, it's not based on reality until we hear from MPAC, but we anticipate that the amount will be somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. We continue to wait on MPAC to come forward, do its assessment, give us some information, but COVID has delayed all their activities. And that's caused us and the authority some real grief because they need to get started operating. And here we're sitting with an agreement that we can't bring forward. The information from MPAC will be absolutely central to any revised agreement for that we bring forward to council. Because if the taxes are too high, the authority will not be able to operate. They do not generate that much revenue. All revenue they generate goes back into the park. In lieu of knowing what the taxes are, but them wanting to get on to work, we rejigged this agreement to be a 1-year renewable term. That allows us the flexibility to make changes. We also put in that the authority will pay to the town $5,000 annually in lieu of taxes. That's because we just really don't know. We had to pick a figure, better to be safe than sorry. When MPAC communicates its decision, we will revise that agreement to reflect the longer term and incorporate the statement that they will pay the taxes as determined by MPAC. We have concerns. This whole process will be complicated going forward because we don't know how far back MPAC may go. Are they going to say, yes, it was exempt 1 year and not exempt the next? We just don't know that. We don't know the amount that will be levied, obviously. To create enough certainty that the authority could proceed for this summer, and until we get something from MPAC, we make the assumption that MPAC will apply everything from 2021 forward. If the actual taxes that come as a result of the MPAC assessment are less than $5,000, the town refunds the authority the difference because it's going straight back into the operations of the park. If the taxes are more than $5,000, we don't request retroactive payments because that will wipe out the authority. As we already know, that will be beyond their means. In this case, if the taxes are more than $5,000, we look at options. We work with the authority to submit an appeal and to do what we can to bring that down. We also look at possible rebates, much like the curling club receives right now. They don't pay taxes as a non-for-profit. Any options that we discuss with them will be brought back to council, obviously, for council's consideration and direction. At the end of the day, if MPAC comes in and the taxes are way, way too high and we can't come to any terms, we have to accept that that puts the authority in a position where we have to reimagine the whole setup here. But that's not here right now. Our goal is to get them to work and to have an agreement that we can that supports what we need to do and recognizes their limitations, but sets the ground so that we can move forward as information comes in. So I'm sorry, it's a little bit complicated. It was less complicated in my mind when I was writing it, but we did take it through, the authority through it step by step, and they agreed with what we have.
I guess we will, MPAC will have a positive impact on the tax situation, but these drastic issues that we might have to take, we don't want to back. The authority has done a phenomenal job for the years. We never hear a complaint or a headache in their operations. They have a great bunch of volunteers. We're fortunate to have them. So hopefully things work out in their favor and our favor as well. I think you've covered it off quite well. Any other comments or questions?
Okay, moved by Stacey White, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-038, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the Culvert Park Operating Authority.
All in favor? Motion carried.
And the second bylaw is moved by Lad Shaba, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-042, being a bylaw to appoint a property standards officer.
All in favor? Motion carried.
And that's all of them.
That's it. Item number 9, questions from council to staff. None noted. Item number 10, notice of motions. Councillor Stacy White.
Yes, so I'd like to bring a motion next council meeting for staff to bring back a report on the number of residential properties being charged a commercial rate for water due to having an in-home business, and if the municipality has the ability to assist them as a small business, because they're the most harmed with COVID. If this report could also include information on known governmental programs for small businesses, even if we can't help them out, perhaps just sharing information will help them out. So thank you for that.
Give a motion to receive. Okay. Additional information, response to the chamber letter. Oh, sorry. Councillors, updates, reports. Councillor Owen.
Yeah. As council knows, I recently attended the FNUM conference. It was titled Go North. Despite the fact that it was Zoom, so you don't get the interaction that you would normally get at a conference, I think it was still a very worthwhile endeavor. Of course, there was many political greetings from politicians, and they were all recorded. But of interest to a lot of people is high-speed affordability internet, and there were two presentations on that. Two companies that are basically using very similar technology and but delivering it in totally different ways. Telesat Lightspeed, they're putting their satellites up, and they're hoping to be online in 2023. They will be selling to local suppliers, who then in turn will sell to consumers. The other company is one that is SpaceX, is their Starlink program, which has received a lot of media attention. They're putting up, I was going to say hundreds, but it's probably thousands of satellites. They control this product from beginning to end. They build their own satellites, they launch their own satellites, and what they are doing is dealing directly with consumers. So when their program, it's not up and running in this area yet, and there was no date given, as it's an ongoing project. The faster they can make the satellites and launch them, the faster the service will be here. Basically, with their program, you contact them, you get a box, and you get what they call an antenna, but it's really a mini satellite dish. And according to them, within 5 minutes, you can be plugging in your computer and up and running. The satellite dish, well, the antenna follows the satellites, and if one satellite loses, then they bounce to another. And it even has a heating element in it, so that it will melt snow, so they say. I don't know whether they're talking about Southern Ontario snow or Northern Ontario snow. The other, there was quite a bit of talk about biomass and green energy. The Indigenous people have their own hydroelectric company, which has expanded quite nicely. And biomass, I guess Europe is far ahead of us in terms of the technology. So what's happening with biomass is companies are bringing in proven technology from Europe and implementing it in Canada. There was also a commitment to what they call critical minerals. And those are the minerals that are needed for things like high efficiency rechargeable batteries. So what the government said there is that they're cutting red tape for mining. So I'm hoping they're cutting red tape for all mining, because I don't see how they could do it mineral specific. And that's basically where the main topics. I hope they can go live next year so you can get the networking and you can hear from the other communities what they're dealing with. That was the one thing lacking, but it was definitely informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White.
So this spring, KLDCS students brought home a gold and bronze medals from the 2021 Virtual Skills Ontario competition. The teams battled through intense competition in a virtual format that was new to everyone and forced students to both excel at their task and innovate in a virtual world. The robotics team, made up of Shaylin Pratt, Benjamin Honeyborn, Anthony Dumas, and Theo Kurtz, won gold and were invited to represent Ontario at nationals. Unfortunately, they were not able to move on due to the stay-at-home orders. The video production team, made up of Joe McGinnis and Molly McCormick, earned a bronze medal in their highly competitive field. And finally, Helen Monroe and Emerson Drewbrook made up 2D animation team and earned a solid 8th place. Their coach, Dan Kurtz, is extremely proud of their grit, creativity, and talent that all of the competitors demonstrated and can't wait to see how they perform under better circumstances. I had the pleasure of recently joining a Zoom celebration for these students, and honestly, all their accomplishments during COVID are certainly admirable. So we certainly send our pride towards them for sure. So thank you for that.
I think we should congratulate Dan for his efforts, and this is not the first year that they've been recognized with these rewards. It's continued now for several years, so kudos for them, for Dan and his group. Having attended some of those functions, it is really amazing what these young kids can do. Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we could send the teacher and all the students congratulatory letter on town letterhead signed by the mayor and signed by the mayor on behalf of council as well. I think that would probably mean something to the students, and it's a keepsake for them as well. So if we could do that, I think it would be a great idea. Thank you.
I agree. Any other comments? Unnoted. Last one.
So that for the mayor.
The mayor, on behalf of council.
Councillor White, if we need any additional information, we'll contact you for the contact information. Thank you.
So moved by Eugene Ivanoff, seconded by Stacey White. Be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of council be received and that the mayor provide a letter on behalf of council to the awarded students.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item number 12.1, response to chamber letter.
Last meeting, we received a letter from the chamber to which council directed, or to have staff be directed to provide a letter back outlining which bylaws are in place and community initiatives that are in place. So we wanted to include the response on the agenda for yourselves as well as the community, because there's some great information in there for everyone to be up to speed with. So it's just here for knowledge to be received.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Councillor White?
Just amazing work putting that all together. It's quite a large package. And my hope is the chamber actually maybe disseminates some of this information to their members on our behalf, because it is really, really valuable information. So to whoever put it together, thank you so much. It was a lot of work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Lpat. Be it resolved that the response letter to the Kirkland Lake Chamber be received.
All in favor? Motion carried. Item 12.2, 2020 Annual Integrity Commissioners Report from E4M, our previous Integrity Commissioner.
Our previous Integrity Commissioner, E4M, as part of their contract at that time, was that they were to provide us with annual reports. So this is the report for activities during 2020, just to be received.
Any comments? Councillor Ivanov.
Well, the question I have, I see they have an average cost for an inquiry, but they don't have total cost for last year. Can they tell us how much we spent last year?
Oh,
Don't have that offhand, but we can add that in the motion if you'd like.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Moved by Rick Owen, seconded by Stacy White. Be it resolved that the 2020 Annual Integrity Commissioner Report from E4M be received, and that staff be directed to report back on total costs associated with the Integrity Commissioner from 2020.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Your worship, just a point of privilege. Yeah, can we have the cost for the year before, if you don't mind? It doesn't have to be part of this motion. The motion is gone. I just wanted to see if there's a trend here. Maybe things are going up or is going down. I don't know, because I know this discussion will probably come to the council at some point to see what we can do. But we're looking at all our costs to hold down the cost. Well, it's something that we have to discuss at some point. So it'd be nice to have what the cost was previous year to the one that you're looking up now, if you don't mind.
I know we did pass it, but if we want to amend that, maybe we can just say from this term of council so that I can include anything that's current as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just want to see the trend. And maybe we spend more or we spend less.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that be directed to report back on total costs associated with the Integrity Commissioner from this term of council.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item 13, motion to move into closed for discussion on property sale and contract, I believe.
Moved by Eugene Ivanov, seconded by Patrick Adams. Be it resolved that council move into a closed session pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss 2 land disposition matters and 2 matters involving identifiable individuals.
All in favor? Motion carried. There you go again. Any discussion from the closed meeting? None noted.
You have a motion.
Oh, sorry.
We have a motion from matters from closed, moved by Lpat, seconded by Casey Owens. Be it resolved that staff be directed to end the bylaw contract with PADS and bring the bylaw enforcement in-house by the end of June 2021.
All in favor?
Well, yeah, because I don't know if we'll have that in-house by June 2021, but the contract with PADS will end June 30th.
And the bylaw contract with PADS, sorry, 1 second, by the end of June 2021, and
there's no end to it.
okay, so we will say Moved by Lpat, seconded by Casey Owens, be it resolved that staff be directed to end the bylaw contract with PAD by the end of June 2021.
All in favor? Motion carried. Confirmation bylaw.
Moved by Stacy White, seconded by Rick Owen, be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, numbered, passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Bylaw number 21-043 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held June 1st, 2021.
All in favor? Motion carried. Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Casey Owens, seconded by Lpat, be it resolved that council adjourn the June 1st, 2021 regular meeting of council.
All in favor? Motion carried. Adjourned.
Adjourn.
Good night.